Thanks, Arthur. I do hope that we will meet all the expectations that you set out. Yeah, so I'm excited to be here. Maybe just what we forgot is just that there might be a couple of people listening over the internet that's with us also in this way. So it is live on YouTube, so we hope that keeps on working, and that it will also be, the idea is that it's recorded as well. So it's great for me to be with you in this way. Arthur introduced and said something about me. So we've been pastoring at Randburg, co-pastoring for the last 9.5 years. Before that in Vryheid, like I said, I'm married to Erna. In many ways, I always say I'm the shop front of her ministry. So she works really hard to make a lot of things happen, and I'm so thankful for her. I have 2 children, Yahweh and Martin Johan. So that's just a bit about our family if you don't know me. And so, like I say, pastoring at Randburg for the last 3 years, I've been involved in planting cross-culture church, or C Cubed for short. Something that has been deeply rewarding on many levels, but also sometimes almost unbearably challenging. So me and Simon were just sitting around a beer yesterday evening and sharing a lot of those stories of stuff that just wanted to make us run away, and still does so. So for those of you who don't know, this is Randburg's 3rd church plant venture. It started off with Diepsloot, which was basically your traditional missionary point. And I think just through God's provision, there was vision in the church council saying, if we really want to take this forward, we need to get a church planter, and we need to really support him in a way that he can take this forward. And we're so grateful because Gwen Asemenya has been working in Diepsloot. When we started more or less the same time, it started with about 30 odd members. The last church council meeting, it's 500. So there's really something happening in Diepsloot for which we are grateful. And then, of course, something that we've also been involved with, didn't start out as a church planting thing, but ended up is the work in London, of which all of you, in a sense, have been part also by contributions. Reverend Kruger, the cock, is there. And we are so glad that after 10 years of really hard work there, they are at a point where they are getting self-sustaining, and there's a different story. It's about 100 members. But yet from nothing to that has been immense blessing from God. And so I think it was through these 2 ventures that sort of wasn't really chosen by Randburg, but got on our table, that we got into the whole thing of church planting, and especially God through that opened our eyes to something that I believe we were missing. It's as if we could see ourselves fulfilling the mandate of taking the gospel to Samaria. How do you say that in English? Samaria. And so Diepsloot was in a sense that, and the outskirts, London. But the question that we started asking ourselves is, what about Judea? What about just our neighbors next to us? Because you see, I also realize sometimes that type of work is easy because you send someone. You know, someone needs to go there and you sort of support him financially, but you're not really involved. And that was really the challenge, especially because, like Arthur now mentioned, Judea is changing and constantly changing. I don't know if you noticed as you walked in here, you will see there on the corner, on the photo, the cornerstones of, I think, 7 churches that has closed down from the inner city to here to form what we have here at the moment in Randburg. And so on the one hand, I always say, if I walk past it, I keep thinking it's great testimony of God's provision. We are built on those foundations of faithful believers that follow Jesus in Johannesburg through all the years. But as one of my friends jokingly said one day while we were looking at the cornerstones, he said, yes, you know, the powers of hell won't conquer it, but urbanization might. You know? And actually, it's not a joke. It's one of the things, the big things I think we need to repent of, which I will get back to in the end. And it is, to my mind, due to our failure, our willingness to contextualize the gospel and plant new churches, because in those areas where our churches closed down, where we lost those buildings, there there's not less people. In fact, there's a lot more than there were 10 years back. There's less white Afrikaans Reformed people. That's true. But there's more people from all tribes and all nations. And so maybe I should just say something, a brief word on contextualization. I did use the word, and it's so easy to be misheard on that. So here's what one of the best summaries for me of what I believe it to be from the Church Planting Manual of Redeemer. It says, contextualization is not, as is often argued, giving people what they want to hear, or adapting the gospel's core message, you can say. Rather, it's giving people the Bible's answers, which they may not at all want to hear, to questions about life that people in their particular time and place are asking, in language and forms they can comprehend, and through appeals and arguments with force they can feel, even if they reject them. So to my mind, we need to be aware of what's happening around us, like Arthur said in the opening. We need to be like the sons of Issachar from 1 Chronicles, men who had understanding of their times to know what Israel ought to do. And so we need to, as churches, know, as people leading these churches, know what do we need to do in these times. And so with hindsight, of course, it seems obvious to look back at this, what is happening in our area. The Afrikaans people were moving out of the city. New people from all tribes and nations were moving in. We needed to take the gospel to those people. We needed to find out what the questions were that they were asking about life, and we needed to give the Bible's answer, show them how our triune God, like from Psalm 67, that needs to be worshipped, that He is what they are looking for. We needed to go and show them that, and of course in a language that they could comprehend through appeals and arguments with force they could feel, even if they rejected it. We needed to do that, and we didn't do this. And so, like I said, I think in God's grace, He opened our eyes in Randburg, in the church council for this. And so what we did is first start with translation services in the bigger congregation, but we soon realized that you can translate a sermon, you can make the worship service understandable, but the problem is you can't translate a culture, you can't integrate people fully into such an Afrikaans culture. It just didn't work. So we got many walk-ins. We had a wonderful story of a Lebanese guy coming to faith here, going back to his hometown. It was in the Beeld and everything. So there was wonderful stories through this, but yet we weren't able to reach our community. The people didn't stick. We tried to get an English Bible study running that sort of integrated with the congregation, but the people kept falling off because they always felt like the tag-along of this bigger community. And so through that, the idea of planting a church, a new community that would be able to reach a new group of people by preaching and living the implications of the gospel within this community, that's where it started. And so our biggest challenge was, and still is in many ways, getting people to see that church planting is disciple making, that it is a biblical church growth strategy, and that it's very urgent. And so this is all one of my questions that I needed or agreed with Simon to speak on, is just to get to why plant churches. And maybe I didn't ask that before, and many of us may be involved in that already, so you don't need convincing because you are doing it. But hopefully it can just get the conversation also to the core, because it's tied into maybe, like Arthur said, some of our methodology in terms of disciple making. But hopefully it will also give you just arguments, if you're not venturing into that, to go and speak to your council. Or if you're still a student, to just go and think, maybe this is what I need to equip myself for better. But here we go. I believe that anyone with a biblical reformed ecclesiology should be serious about starting new communities of faith. I cannot see that you really have a biblical view of the church and not be serious about seeking to grow the church through church planting. Just listen to our confession. One of the places, Heidelberg Catechism, which I love this answer, just it's so simple and yet so profound. What do you believe concerning the Holy Catholic Church? So I believe the Son of God, through His Spirit and Word, out of the entire human race, from the beginning of the world to its end, gathers, protects, and preserves for Himself a community chosen for eternal life and united in true faith. And of this community, I am and always will be a living member. So friends, we believe that Jesus was, is, and will be gathering His church from the beginning of the world to its end. So the point is, He's busy with this as we speak. As we sit here, Jesus is gathering His church. He's gathering people to worship Him and the triune God in spirit and in truth. He is doing that. And so if I'm a living member of this gathered and growing body, I'm together with my fellow believers instruments through which He does this. I'm part of what He's doing. And now, of course, this can and must mean that Jesus keeps calling people to His local congregation, of which I'm a member. But if you add Matthew 28 to the equation and interpret it not pietistically as just to get people to give their hearts to Jesus, which we hear often, or methodistically, I don't know if you even get such a word, but just getting people to pray the sinner's prayer or saving lost souls, if you really read what is there, it becomes clear that this is a call to church planting. At its core, Jesus came and He said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. Okay, so it's clear, just like we say in our confession, all authority has been given to Jesus. It is Jesus that works. It is He that calls the church. It's He that gathers the church. And He is with the gathered church till the end of time. How does He do it? He uses us. He uses His church. Therefore, go therefore, because I have all authority, because I'm doing this, you go. And make disciples, and we know, of course, this is the only verb, the verb in this verse is make disciples. To my mind, yes, contextualization. It says of all nations. So even if you just limit it to language, you need to contextualize to do what Jesus say you must do. And so logically, this means that there can't be only an Afrikaans church in this neighborhood on my pastoral watch. It's impossible that I can just be an Afrikaans church here, because when we did a survey of this area, 6 kilometers surrounding this church building, 120,000 people lived here. This is only in 10 years. You know, when they bought this property, it was almost empty. There was very few people. But now 120,000 people, of which only 15% is Afrikaans speaking. Okay, so it's an immense task, and we can't say we are disobeying Jesus' command. We are not reformed if we are not seeking ways to go to these nations and disciple them. Okay, and if it means in another language, if that is the best, then it's obvious. I mean, language shouldn't be at all the issue. And so, of course, yes, the three participles, to my views, just strengthens the call. It says, as you are going, basically. So, as you are going, the Afrikaans works well if it says, al gaan en al doop en al lerende. That's how we make disciples. It's not a quick once-off thing. It must be part of my discipleship journey. It is me being a disciple of Jesus, following Jesus, and as I follow Him, I must make disciples. And I'm not doing this in isolation, so we need to be baptizing them. That's the right of entry into the body of Christ, His community. I'm baptizing people into Christ, and therefore into the church. And then there's the lifetime of teaching one another, to observe all things that Jesus has commanded us as we live in community, loving each other. That's discipline, that's church discipline, is teaching each other. So you have all the marks of the church in here. And of course, one of the things Jesus did command us is to go and make disciples of all nations. So that needs to be part of the way we think about church. So at the core, to my mind, church planting is Jesus gathering disciples who go on and make more disciples with the desire to come together to worship Him, to love and to keep each other accountable in how we follow Jesus and do everything He commanded. And that means also using the means of grace, which is the preaching of His word and the prayers and the sacraments, that to strengthen our faith and to grow in faith, but of course also to grow in numbers, to reach the people that He sends on our road and that He is calling us to. So friends, that's the thing. Church planting is disciple making. It's a biblical church growth strategy. And just to emphasize that, I mean, we have the example of a lot of examples, but Paul in particular, I think, and I'm not going to go into all the detail, but it's very interesting if you follow it, that Paul has a specific strategy. He goes to the cities. He goes to the important strategic places and he plants churches in those places. We see it in Acts, Titus 1 verse 5. And once he has planted churches, this is interesting to me, in those strategic places, Paul states that he had proclaimed the gospel in the entire region and his work there is done. It's very interesting. Just read with me Romans 15. He says, therefore I glory in Christ Jesus in my service to God. I will not venture to speak of anything except what Christ has accomplished through me in leading the Gentiles to obey God by what I have said and done, by the power of signs and miracles through the power of the Spirit. So from Jerusalem all the way around to Illyricum, I have fully proclaimed the gospel of Christ. Fully proclaimed in this whole region. Paul hasn't been to every person. He hasn't been to every small town. He strategically went to certain places, and he chose those places and said that will have an impact on all the rest. Okay. So what you have in 300 after Christ, 50% of the city's populations was Christians through this strategy. So basically, I think the strategy was as it goes in the city, so it goes in the world. But you can take me on that. But just to slip in some historical motivation, John Calvin. So there's an article published by John Stark. I can give you the detail of that. But that was very interesting to me, called Calvin, the Missionary and Church Planter. It says by 1555, Calvin and his Geneva supporters had planted 5 churches in France. 4 years later, they had planted 100 churches in France. By 1562, Calvin's Geneva, with the help of some of their sister cities, had planted more than 2,000 churches in France. So Calvin, although I don't think he physically started those churches, he was a leading planter in that sense. He led the way in every part of the process. He trained, he assessed, he sent, he counseled, he corresponded, he wrote letters to those planters, and he prayed for the missionaries and church planters he sent. So that was a huge part of the Reformation. The second stuff that just motivation, this is more sociologically, I'm not going to go through everything. Just the research show that younger adults are disproportionately found in new congregations. And there's a lot of reasons for that. New residents are better reached by new congregations. New social groups are better reached by new congregations. But here's the important one, the large one. The average church gains most of its new members, 60 to 80%, from the ranks of people who are not attending any worshiping body. While churches over 10 to 15 years gain 80 to 90% of new members by transfer. So that's just what happens. So we're fishing in a sense in a same fishbowl. And I know there's something to say for bringing people to a good church with good theology, but in a sense we especially want those people that's nowhere, that's not believing or have slided so far away that they're not part of any community. So friends, the last one is it is disciple making, it's biblical, it is urgent. to my mind. There are 5 million new people moving into the cities of the developing world every month. 5 million people every month into the world's cities. Okay? That's a big amount of people. 62% of our country's population live in cities. Plus minus 600 people are moving into South Africa's cities yearly. Most of them to the bigger metropoles, 10% of that to the greater Johannesburg area. So we're speaking about 60,000 people that comes to our city yearly. Okay? So if we just want to dream of a church for every 1,000 of those people, we're speaking about 60 new churches actually that we need to plant every year. That is huge. If we want to take this calling seriously and say, listen, there's really an opportunity. So in a way, I mean, God is doing something in history through the people moving back into cities, and we need to be like the sons of Issachar. We need to be clued up with that. We need to say, what are we going to do about that? So to my mind, it is very, very urgent. Which brings me to the last reason for church planting, I think, and that is one of the second main thing that I need to speak on, is that church planting, I believe, really is a catalyst for repentance and renewal in the Reformed churches. In a way, I've touched on this with my intro. Maybe the first question we need to ask ourselves is, if we have such a clear biblical mandate and example, if it's really so obvious, why aren't we more keen on doing this? And I do want to be fair, and I'm surely as this progress, I'm going to step on toes. I know that, but to be fair to our denomination, like I said, we were good at going to Samaria. Okay, we planted a lot of churches in townships, and there's still benefits from that, and that was a good thing. And what is interesting is, in a way, Judea wasn't always not important. Maybe you have never thought about this. I got this from Centurion's website. I think it's one of Gerrit Creer's articles. But listen to this. The first Reformed church was planted and established in Rustenburg on 11 February 1859. Then when you get to 1959, 100 years later, there's 197 Reformed churches. Okay? Something happened in those 100 years. There was church planting, maybe in a different form, but there was a focus and a zeal to reach people and to bring the gospel to people. I know it was a church polity issue in a way, but I still believe at the center was Christ's rule and Jesus being the head of the church. And so people was really serious about it, and they must have been taking this to the people and to different towns and places, and they were planting churches. This growth trend only ends in 1986, after which numbers began to decline and congregations started to close their doors. Okay, and so we must ask, what happened? Why has that stopped? And here's where it might get difficult, because here's my thoughts, and I really needed questions and answers to interact with you and have it tested, because I don't want to just stand here and say, I mean, I hope it's not just what I think, but here you need to bear with me and help me out. But I believe it's stuff that I, at least personally, and it's going to be a bit personal, that I need to repent of. So here's the third thing, the challenges that we need to grapple with. Let me just do this. So the first one is maybe the toughest and the hardest pill to swallow, but here it is, the idolization of Afrikaner culture and identity. The idolization of Afrikaner culture and identity. I mean, there's no easy way to put it. My people is culturally proud, prideful, and I do believe it comes from bad theology to a big degree. There was a way of framing our role and purpose as Afrikaners in this land in a way that said, we are the chosen people, we are the rescuers of South Africa. This is basically our our promised land that God gave to us. We are God's gift to this country. We are the rescuers. And the problem is that led to what we're still dealing with, a lot of feelings of superiority. Rather than if you think of yourself as the rescuer, I mean, at least it should be humble servanthood as Jesus did it, but that is not how we came. We came in pride, thinking we know everything, we have everything. And if you think of it in that way, I mean, you can debate with me and say, yeah, maybe this, maybe that. But it makes then sense that we grew amongst Afrikaners, doesn't it? Because, I mean, we were like people in the same fishbowl. You don't see the water, okay? So you don't see this idol, and yet people were talking about Jesus and his reign of the church and his headship, and so people were railed in by that, which was a good thing, but yet we were missing an important idol. And so we grew in terms of our Afrikaner culture, and because we were the saviors, the missionaries sent to dark Africa, of course it makes sense that we went into the townships and we went to those places and planted churches there. It makes sense. But like Peter, we weren't willing to eat with the Gentiles. Okay? They're not allowed to come into my church, and there's still places in our denomination that's like that. My hometown. I can't take my friends. They're not allowed to sit at my table. I will most certainly not sacrifice my language for them. You see, once again, in the language debate, I don't know where you stand on that, but let me put it out there. You see, making disciples came far second if compared to the endeavor of preserving Afrikaans culture. And the church became a place of preservation of our good Afrikaner values and practices and traditions. To my mind, that we can't deny it. And even in my congregation, which I love, Randburg, which is so open, I believe, to at least discussing this and being challenged with this and liberal culturally. I had lots of conversations with people that says, Thomas, what is this English thing you want to do? Man, I speak English the whole week. At least give me some breathing space. You know, the church is one space where I don't have to do that. Okay, don't take that away. They're welcome. We have more translation service. Why do we want to put energy and resources into this? I mean, this is our space. I had, it's so interesting. We have moms, parents putting their children in English schools. That's a trend. Okay, but here's the thing. And now the children grow up and they're struggling with the catechism in Afrikaans. And now the moms is saying, we're struggling, our children is struggling with church, with the language, with that. And I say, but come and join, please come and join us with the English thing, and we have something, or let me find you, if you're closer, let me find you a good English church. No, where are my children going to learn the Afrikaans values and culture? You know, I don't want them to miss out on it. Did you see what's in our hearts? So we must first, another thing I got, we must first look at our own people. You want to plant churches with all these strange people that's really breaking down everything good in the city, and that while our rural Afrikaans churches is struggling. And so now you want to pour all our resources into this, that we must look after our own people first. Okay? I've had that conversations is here. And I believe it's still not finished. So that's a big thing we need to deal with, friends, is the idolization of Afrikaner culture and identity. Another thing that ties into this is being reformed with a capital R, doppers, rather than being reformed. Okay? Once again, I might step on toes. But our wonderful reformed heritage, I believe, became a badge that we wear rather than a deep conviction of our hearts. Okay? It's a badge that we wear. We print it on T-shirts, but it's not something in our hearts. I don't know if you remember the article of Young, Restless and Reformed of Colin Hanson, September 22. It's 10 years old now, and I just got a tweet of that, and I reread that article, but this really struck me. So he writes about the resurgence of Reformed theology, of Calvinism actually in the States. So he was 10 years back already saying, yes, something happening. And then especially he writes about this one guy, Josh Harris, that really became a convinced Reformed proponent and a Calvinist after coming from also a charismatic background and the whole seeker-sensitive thing. But here's what Harris, he writes, Harris, in a interview with him, he says the following, Harris says the following: I remember some of the first encounters I had with Calvinists. I'm sorry to say that they represented the doctrines of grace with a total lack of grace. They were spiteful, cliquish, arrogant. I didn't even stick around to understand what they were teaching. I took one look at them and knew I didn't want any part of it. And so to my mind, we've been doing this. Yes, we can also say the culture is unfair towards us, but I still have it when people get around and we say we're a Reformed church planting an English church, people will say, what? What, you guys don't do such things? You know, so the perception, you're almost those guys that huddle somewhere in a corner and that's angry at everyone and that's against everything. You see, we've managed to let people know everything that we are against, but they don't know what we are for. Okay? And that is a real practical problem. Just once again in our church, and I must watch my time, but in our church, Randburg, when we have a regular church camps, like most Afrikaans churches do. And so we ended up booking a bit late, or I can't remember, but we ended up with a place close to Rustenburg, and we didn't reckon with week, the end of month, you know, people got paid, and so you had a lot of miners, Afrikaans people, but in this campsite with our Reformed, you know, the Randburg people. And of course there was a lot of drinking and a lot of swearing, and afterwards when I spoke to people, I said, oh, we don't want to go back to that place, you know, that's not our type of people. It's not our type of people. Friends, a Christian can never say that. Okay? We don't have a type of people. Especially if you believe that I'm saved only by grace. Okay, then my attitude should, of course there's boundaries. Of course I need to speak to people about sin and about breaking the law. But I know most probably this guy that's doing this doesn't know Jesus. So how am I going to share Christ with this person? Because that's their only hope. It's not because he's not my type of person that I can sort of put him aside. And this is exactly what happens. We became residents of this world. We're consumers. The church is something for us, rather than us really being the church. So that's the second thing. The third thing, I think we lost a kingdom focus, and that ties into this. I mean, this tendency to withdraw, and I believe sometimes it's necessary. I mean, we cannot compromise the gospel for the sake of unity. We can never do that. Okay, but I think there's also a way in which we can try and be so pure that it's not the gospel really, but it's almost our reaction to the gospel that keeps people separate from us. And so whether I do communion the best and the proper way, and you are one of those calky guys, you know. So I don't believe you're really sincere in following Jesus. That's what we end up doing, and even with other churches. You know, in this whole church plot venture, because we are so in a sense clueless as Reformed churches, I mean, the guys that has really supported me, I found wonderful friends in RCSA, the Anglican guys, that's deeply Reformed. You know, people that loved you. Yes, there's a lot of things that we differ seriously on, but they are Reformed. Even with some of the Reformed Baptists. I don't know if you listen to Heritage Baptist pastor, regular teachers on Radio Pulpit. So it's great guys. So that have become, in a sense, our support structure here, because we are so isolated in doing this. So we need to retain that. We need to be known for what we are for first. And then secondly, what we are against. It's fine to be against stuff. And necessary in our culture, I think, definitely. Yeah, so that is important, the kingdom fund. And then finally, institutional mindset, I think, all this ties in together. So if I have overlap, please bear with me. So many people asked me when we were speaking about this idea of planting a church, and they were angry, but where are you going to find the building? And where is your church office going to be? And how are we going to afford all of this? And this is going to cost so much money, you know. So you see how we think. We think, this is what we think, basically, church planting. And I found this from the internet. But this is wrong images, isn't it? We're not planting church buildings. Okay? That's a building. That's not the church. That's the facility that we meet in. So something is wrong with our thinking. We think of planting churches when we think of reproducing programs and buildings and systems rather than discipleship and relationship. So once again, church became our church rather than Christ's body. And of course, I know there's no professors or some, but there's at least Mukanyu and the guys are here, but I believe, and I believe it's changing in our seminary. I hope so. There's good guys that really have heard this. But I do think if one of our outcomes can be to really be speaking to our seminary to say, listen guys, we need to be rethinking our training, and maybe it's happening, but we want to know where's the church planting curriculum. We want to know where's the entrepreneurship, in a sense, in terms of that, because I was trying to maintain for a big part. Maybe I missed a class or two, but but it's about maintaining this institution, or not upsetting people, you know, keeping people calm, keeping people happy. And I'm still struggling to break out of that mold, even though we're venturing into all of this. So, friends, this is the 4 aspects I think that came up for me. There might be more. I think this is behind our neglecting of Judea, our becoming culturally insular, and not living out our calling. And I'm sorry if I speak a lot from an Afrikaans perspective, especially to my brothers here. But I do think I wanted to say that being reformed, being doppers rather than reformed, that I pick up from my colleagues. You know, there's all kinds of things that you can relate to there. But let me move on. We need to start speaking about this if we even want to venture into church planting. But in my experience, there's nothing like venturing into church planting to speed up this process. I mean, that's why I think it is really a catalyst for repentance and renewal. It's just getting out there. At least if you're not into church, start speaking to the people in your neighborhood. Start having people over for dinner that you don't know or don't know where they're from, or just start with it. I was saying to Simon that my involvement with church planting has made me more convinced of our Reformed doctrine than ever. I mean, it's led me to a deeper appreciation of it hasn't led me away from anything, I believe. Maybe questioning some of the form and stuff, but that is also a good thing, because here's the thing: gimmicks does not work. Not if you want to make disciples. If you want to entertain, then there's a lot of ways to draw crowds, you know. And unfortunately, we're in that culture. But if you really want to be involved in people's life, if you really want to see change and bring people something that the world doesn't bring them, I mean, that is our Reformed heritage, our doctrines, our understanding of church. And so all I'm saying with this is, if we get our hands dirty, get out there, try something, our idols will come to the surface, and God will help us deal with that. I mean, in a way, it's only real discipleship conversations with one of my good Zulu friends and another Tswana lady that opened my eyes more to my idolization of my culture. You think, I thought I was liberal. But come conversations about Geloftedag and all those things and the history, suddenly they just opened stuff in my heart that I didn't know was there. You see, my fellow Afrikaans people didn't do that, because amongst them I was one of the liberals, you know. And so they just didn't challenge me. But as soon as I have conversations, real conversations about following Jesus with a Zulu brother, it's a different story, and even doubting black people will have big issues. So we currently, I'm putting it out there, but we've been having a Geloftedag service in our church building, for the last couple of years. But we need to rethink that. Because our question is, now we're a church, so at the moment the church plant group is still under Randburg supervision. They're basically part of Randburg. So can we, in our good minds, especially if we want to attract, because one guy said, listen, I invited my friend, but he drove past this on the 16th of December, and he said, this is a bunch of racists. You know, the image, I know there's a lot of untruth and a lot of things in that, but still, if we're serious about reaching these people, we need to rethink all these things. And I wasn't even aware of that before I ventured into this, just to give you an idea. Trying to plant a church opened my eyes to more of my dopper things, and where my Reformed heritage was more of a badge than conviction. It's really through this venture that we discovered, like I said, convinced Reformed brothers in other denominations. That's very dear to our hearts. Church planting has opened my eyes to how many times I still think of the church as a building, as an event, as a worship service, as something, a structure, rather than really a body of believers. So let me close off just by the last thing and try to tie this together. So how then should we, even after this conference, because this road is hard, it's difficult, so how should we be gauging success? And that's difficult because some of us are very into a physical plant, some of us are thinking, some is more indirectly involved. So I think here's one of our big challenges, and also because of the mindset of our people, one of the challenges is the whole thing that success is only measured in members, conversions, giving. You need to be effective. That is sort of the overarching thing. And so the idea is that you need to have exactly the right minister because he can create some powerful religious experience and that will draw the crowds. You see, that's unfortunately sort of the water church, the broader evangelical space that we live in. And so it's so easy for us and for our people to expect that of us, and then we sort of have this huge expectations of ourselves. On the other hand, people will react to that idea of, we need to be successful too. No, we just need to be faithful. And I do think there's a challenge with that as well. So people will say, no, you have to be sound in doctrine, godly character, faithful preaching and pastoring. I mean, of course, all of that is, that's far better than the success model. But, and I'm once again speaking from my own heart, there is a sense where we can do that, and then my faithfulness does not include seeking new skills. Okay, so I'm just saying I'm faithful, but really I'm not asking hard questions, but how must I upskill myself, for instance, to have conversations with people around me that I don't know, or how to be culturally sensitive, stuff like that. So I need to work on how I communicate the gospel. I need to ask hard questions of my ministry if nothing is happening at all. And there must be a question in my heart. So I love, once again, it's from the Church Plant Manual and Keller's book, Centered Church, but he speaks of fruitfulness as a good gauge. So fruitfulness. We are not only called to faithfulness, but we are called to bear fruit. And 1 Corinthians 3, we have Paul speaking to the Corinthians and calling them God's field, in which some planted, some watered, some reaped. And so the idea is that the gardener, of course, needs to be faithful and disciplined, but he also needs to be skillful. He needs to know stuff, take into account certain stuff. The wonderful thing of this, the degree of success is, in the end, determined by factors beyond the control of the gardener. Isn't that so? The soil, the weather, it's God's work. So that's what I like about that image of fruitfulness. I need to be faithful. I need to check my skills. But in the end, I know it's God that makes things grow. He needs to send the rain. He needs to change hearts. So on the one hand, the whole idea of success can put far too much pressure on us. Even especially as we're venturing into this thing, we think, oh, I'm doing something so completely wrong because there's not the great success. And many times, unfortunately, the donors and the church council, they are adding to that pressure. Now, where is the success story? So there's too much pressure, and it can make us go to wrong places to solve that. On the other hand, faithfulness can be a hiding place. for me not to really, really search my heart and to say, how am I adjusting what I'm doing? And so fruitfulness, on the one hand, to my mind, if we gauge success in terms of that, we are held accountable, but we are not crushed by the expectations, because we know ultimately it is in God's hands. And that is what I want to say about that. Amen, I guess.